All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson Mackay.
Today's guest is Rusty Firmin. Rusty is a former member of the elite SAS and has led a remarkable life shaped by his early struggles and later triumphs. He's born and raised in Carlisle, and he faced a challenging childhood, being adopted and moving between various relatives and schools. At the age of 15, he found himself on his own, learning to fend for himself. His life and journey took a significant turn when he decided to pursue a military career, eventually applying for and successfully completing the rigorous SAS selection course in 1977. This achievement earned him the prestigious Badge Beret and Winged Dagger insignia, and he was assigned to B Squadron. During his time in the service, Rusty was exposed to various threats in different regions across the globe. He undertook multiple tours in these areas, facing the challenges of jungle warfare and desert training. Notably, he played a critical role as a Blue Team leader during the 1980 Iranian embassy siege in London, demonstrating his bravery and expertise in counter-terrorism operations. He participated in highly sensitive training operations worldwide, honing his skills in special forces training, presidential-level bodyguard training, and counter-terrorism techniques, providing security and surveillance services during conflicts like the war in Sarajevo and so much more. He's worked with prestigious clients worldwide and is a highly sought-after motivational speaker, sharing insights from his expertise and experiences in the SAS to inspire and educate audiences in corporate and business settings. His speeches offer winning strategies for navigating challenging situations and coping with crises. With passion and realism, he helps leaders and teams develop crucial thinking skills to tackle the ever-changing landscape of today's business world. His life is a testament to resilience, determination, and unwavering dedication to duty. His journey from a challenging upbringing to a celebrated SAS member and influential speaker serves as an inspiring example for individuals and businesses alike. And in this interview, we chat about his time in the military and the SAS, writing his books, the 6 Days films, and why you need to ignore the push to stop and aim to go always a little further every day in your life. And now, let's get to the interview. Thank you so much for coming on. You're a British hero. You're immortalised in film. But for people who maybe don't recognise the name, how would you introduce yourself to people?
I'd probably introduce myself as I'm pretty humble. I've been told a lot of times, you need to get out there and do this and do that. I go, yeah, okay, next, and basically, I was just a guy from Carlisle who couldn't do anything right. School, absolutely rubbish. Sport, loved it, but wasn't big enough to do and get into what I wanted to do, which be a footballer, obviously. But the fact is, I just tell them, I'm a guy who was going nowhere and then ended up to a lot of people. I don't like the word hero. I don't like legend. I'm just a guy that introduces himself exactly as what I've said. I've had some luck. I've had some bad luck. I've made luck. But at the end of the day, I'm just, I'm in the States now as well. We can come on to that later on, doing talks out there. I'm off there next week. So I've gone from being a Carlisle kid that was being bullied because of my size, that went through the whole system, which you obviously know about, and ended up now helping others to maybe try to achieve what I never thought dreamt was achievable. And that's a God honest truth. I did it without a family. So how did I do it? That's the question. And that's the type of person I am. I'm still working. I'm still doing talks for people, still doing presentations all over the place, but that's me. I don't want to sit down and retire. At my age, people say, no, that's not the case. The case is that if you enjoy what you're doing, what's the point in sitting down and saying, yeah, I've done that. No, I've got more plans,
Oh,
and I start again Thursday. I've got a big talk down at the Bisley, which are the ranges in the UK, shooting ranges, and then it's the States. So that's where I am. All of a sudden, I've hit America. It's not supposed to happen.
So how does that? How do you juggle that, the success you've had, the legacy that you've had, with your upbringing? You mentioned being bullied and things like that. How do you kind of look back at that time now to the man you are now? How do you judge those two different Rusties?
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
Yeah. So how would you judge the Rusty that was bullied and brought up in the small village to the Rusty that you are now? The one with the legacy, the honors, the medals you've won. How do you find that looking back now? Because you were frog marched down to the recruitment office by a family member. How do you come to terms with that and what you could have done?
Well, it's easy to look back, but actually, I spend a lot of time looking forward, because what's gone is gone, and I've had to blank it out of my mind from a very, very early age when I was adopted at 14 months. So somewhere I must have pissed my mother off to get adopted at that sort of age, to people I didn't even know. So I've had to come out fighting, and the fight from within is still there. I don't hate anybody, but I've not had what you might call a proper family life in the early years. Yeah, I was a rebel. I was long hair. And I can look back on that and go, well, the reason is there was nobody there to really care. So what do you do? If there's no care, no love, no nothing, you just go on and keep fighting the battles, hoping. And that's what I did. My life could have changed at 15 had I got £50 to buy myself out of the army, which in 1965 was a lot of money, but I couldn't get it. And the thing that saved me is becoming a sportsman within the army. And what I achieved then in sport is what I wanted to be. I played for the British Army at football. You couldn't get any higher in semi-professional football. I played for the army. I represented the British Army. And it talks about what I see this day and age. My bringing up is totally different from what I've seen. A lot of the guys I've met in the army, a lot of them have got backgrounds like mine. But anybody can sit still and say, start whinging and whining, but you can't. I'm helping people right now to motivate themselves, to get a life. I'm a patron of 3 charities here in the UK, unpaid, and I get paid for it. And I see these amputees and servicemen and vets, but I'm there, and I have been for years to help. But What they don't realise, a lot of them, is I've been there before, but nobody helped me. So that's how I work. That's how I do things. I enjoy it. And I've got I think I've got a very good credibility. And that is more than anything.
So, do you think that the army gave you the family that you were looking for? Because you
Yeah,
seem to have this brotherhood of support and love across from other people. Do you think that gave you that discipline, the family that you were seeking back then?
maybe. The fact is that the family I was supposed to have is not, the family that I can remember, because it was very short. You get adopted at 14 months, you don't know your real parents. You then move on not knowing that you've sort of been passed around, and all of a sudden you live with an auntie and such there. 12 or 13 different schools. And there was no settlement there, which meant, I had to sit there day in and day out and wonder what was going on. Everybody else, I've never sent a Mother's Day card in my life. So that, who is she? I never sent a Father's Day card in my life. How many people can say that? I'll tell you what, I bet there's not many. So I had to overcome. You have to overcome and drive forward. And that's what I did. Age 15, 3 months in the army as a boy soldier, I'd have been gone. And when I say gone, I mean probably dead, because I was uncontrollable. But the fact is, that's where I was going. Pushed into the army, yes. Accepted the army, no. Discipline, didn't know anything about it. I soon did, by the way, within 2 years in board service. You talk about bullying. I hate bullying.
Yeah.
But I was bullied till I grew up. Then nobody's bullied me for years. I can tell you that. But in my day, expect it, yeah. Deal with it, yeah. There's not an awful lot else you could do with it. So that's how I grew up. That's when I knew, what's around the corner here? I don't know. That's when I started to want things, I got there, I went to that one, I went to the commandos, I went to the SAS. I couldn't go any higher. But that then put me in the next level, if you like. The next level was, all of a sudden people want me. Now think about that. Somebody who's been pushed away all his life, but somebody wants me. And that's where a lot of things changed. And I was quite happy to help people, no question. That's why I'm involved in a lot of stuff. And even now, but that's something I wanted, something people wanted from me, not me being forced into something I didn't want to do. Hard to explain.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, because you've done a lot of this. But I didn't need, all of a sudden, I didn't need people to rely on. I never had it as a kid. They relied on me. And all the way through my service, I could have gone at 15. I ended up doing 27 years in the British military. And 15 of them were in the SAS.
And do you think the independence that you had when you were younger, that kind of resilience to have and have to rely on yourself, made you such a good soldier that they could rely on you to think on your feet, to look after yourself, to take leadership, to take control of situations? Do you think it helped you in a way?
Well, it's definite. In my day, when I was 15, before, I was a runaway. It was like anything with excitement, piss people off, I suppose. That was me, but it was also my friends.
Mm.
And then I went one way, they went their way, and everything that I've learned and done and tried to help others with, I've been through the learning curve, so I know what to expect. And that's where a lot of people talk the talk. Well, I've done it, talk the talk and I've walked the walk. And the fact is, Ian, that it doesn't matter what you do. I've been through it's been a hard life, right? Enjoyable in a lot of ways, but would you swap it? Nowadays, I'd say no, unless I was getting paid professional footballers' money. And then I would say, oh, yeah, I'll do that. Because, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, isn't it, when you consider like all the life choices that we have, and then but a lot of it's out of our control. It's where we're brought up, our family situation, our schooling, how we're dealt with by people. And I think you've done an amazing job from coming from that situation. You've achieved so much and you've helped so many people, and you should be immensely proud of what you do. And you're still giving back to charities, you're still inspiring people. How did you find that then? The discipline, the control as you progressed. Did you struggle to kind of leave the old Rusty and enter into the Rusty that the military wanted and that they inspired that you could become? How did you deal with that initial training?
I was lucky, and I mean lucky, that the people I met in the early days in the military were really friendly. I was one of the youngest, obviously, as I was coming through. You leave boy service to go to man service. You're a man at 17 and a half, right? It used to be anyway. So you're a junior leader, a boy soldier, if you like. You go through your 2 years of being beaten around and bullied and stuff. Fine. Then you leave there and you go to your man service, as they called it. Well, I was just lucky, and I'm not being funny. I was a good footballer, right? And I got into football. I wanted to be a tracksuit soldier. That's what I wanted. Sod that, get paid for playing football. In 4-9 Field Regiment, Royal Artillery, I could be playing 5 games a week, enjoying myself, getting paid off some, as well as the army. And the people I met there were very friendly, northern regiments, the north of England. I'm from the north, obviously. And then I sort of knit in with them and had a nucleus of friends that we were friends, but the trouble was they stayed their course within 4-9 Field until they ref. I had itchy feet and wanted to go to the commandos, and then from the commandos I went to the SAS. So I was always there, but I always wanted to do something different. And the reason is I didn't know what I was looking for. Dead simple. And while I was in the commandos, I was playing football for the commandos. When I was playing in the SAS, I was captain of the SAS football team. All of that as it progressed, and all of a sudden I'm meeting all these different characters, and I mean different characters, right? Good guys, some of them, same as they'd probably think about me, but who gives a shit anyway, and I don't, But the fact is that that's how I learned. And when I was learning, I didn't realise that I might have been having a bit of a following, not in the pop star world, but all the civvy teams when I was in the military wanted me to play football for them as well as being in the military, which is great. because that's what I did. And then it was rugby. I'd be playing rugby. I'd be playing cricket. Anything to get into a tracksuit. Um, until I went to the SAS, obviously. It had to change. But I was still captain of the football team in the SAS. Still, So, to some respect, they had respect for me in a different area. Done my bit. But when you get to that level, and you think, should I become a footballer? Well, apart from the money, probably yes. But actually, I was quite happy. The things I did in the SS in particular suited me down to the ground. And if I'd known that existed in the early days, I'd have probably gone much earlier. But I didn't. I found it out on the learning curve as I was going through. And that's what propelled me up until I left the army, when I then had a whole new world in front of me. But I wasn't frightened of doing that. Like some of the guys who leave the army can never leave the army. In here, now they're still in the army. Now, Guess what Rusty did? When I left, I went and did the NEBOSH, health and safety management, the most boring subject I've ever done in my life. But I got it, and I knew that it was coming in and being used, in the future. If you're doing security, I've got that background. Health and safety, I thought, well, I'll do that because nobody else is doing it. But I'll have that as a string to my bow. So I was never falling behind. I was trying to keep up and go forward. I was working, all over the place. No doubt we'll come on to that in a minute, but it led me to different things as I was going through my life. People wanted to know about what I did, in my books here. They wanted to know, so I let them know. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't look back. As I said at the beginning, there's always something else. Yeah, deal with that at the back. But there's always something in front of you, and that is the unknown, which I'm interested in. What is in front? Ian, that's what kept me going.
I love that. That you're always looking forward. You accept, you move on, you deal with it, and you just keep pushing and pushing. And as you did find about the SAS, and as you started your training, and you became like an exceptional soldier, what have you noticed between a normal like grunt in the army compared to the SAS? They're one of the most elite units in the world. What have you noticed about the top performers there? What makes them so different, so special in terms of militaries around the world?
Well, Special Air Service, when it was formed by special guys. Therefore, SAS, Special Air Service. I got interested I was never going to go there while I was in the artillery. When I'm in the artillery, I was never going to go there when I was in 4-9. And I'm glad, really, because I think I may have failed because I'd have been too young. But to be a top performer and keep it at the top, I did 15 years in the SAS. It's a long time to be working at a level which a lot regard as the toughest selection for any special forces in the world. I don't like saying that, but I do go along with it because I've done it. And I've done the commando selection. I can talk about stuff I've done. And that's why there was never such a big pass rate in my day. You have 90 people turn up, you might have 15 people pass. It is and was that difficult. So when you pass that, you just have a quick look over your shoulder and go, I'm proud to be where I am, but I had to work for it. It wasn't given to me. But nothing in my life, not one thing, has ever been given to me. Nothing. I've had to work for everything I've got. And that was still part of when I was in the SAS. So when you work at that level and you're recognized after some of the jobs you'll probably mention in a minute, once you've done that, the fact is that you think, you know what, I haven't done that bad. From this 5'2" skinny kid, weighed about 7 stone, and then look what you've achieved. Everybody's better at telling me what I've achieved than I'm telling about myself. That's God's honest fact.
Yeah.
And then I think, yeah, I did do that. Book, second book. I want to do my third book. All non-fiction. Forget these cowboys. Man of non-fiction. And the fact is, that's where I've come through life. That's what I've known. That's why I've got to where I am. And people go. But when you work at that level and have to constantly be at that level, that's a different kettle of fish. You make a mistake, it's going to cost. Be it cost you or cost somebody you're with. I've looked after, security, big stars. I've taught presidential bodyguards. I've worked at presidential level. I've been over to the Secret Service. I'm at the moment working with some of the police SWAT teams in America. So I'm speaking, so they all want to learn. You know what? I'd be glad to pass on what I know. And that to me says, why did they come to me? There's a question. Why? Because they think I've got something to offer them. And the fact is, I know I can offer them something, especially the younger members, because I had to go through my learning to get there and stay alive to pass it down the line. And it's a huge honor for people from a different country to say, come and speak to my guys. Tell them what you know.
So do you think...
That just speaks volumes for what they want.
So do you think then that your books were the first chance you got to actually take stock of it all? That you've always been a kind of looking forward, taking on new responsibilities, pushing yourself, and writing your books gave you a chance to come to terms and look back and, just kind of understand all the amazing things you've achieved, because you seem to always be wanting to keep pushing yourself, focusing, doing new things, taking on new challenges, helping so many people. But were your books a chance for you to stop and actually take stock of what you've done?
Well, the books are like, it's something that's going to be there forever.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a chance to put your point across, which I've done. And the two books, let me know when I can show them.
Oh, go for it.
Two books,
they'll be in the show notes as well.
That's Go, which is on my website, www.rusty-firmin.com. That one, you see Jamie Bell quite clearly on the front, the British actor. Well, that was turned into a film called 6 Days. They couldn't call it Go for different reasons. But Jamie Bell plays me, Rusty Firmin, in the film. But it all came from writing with Will this book. Okay, it's all on my website. So that was 2010. That was out for the 30th anniversary Reading Embassy Siege, which I played quite a big part in. And that took part in 1980. 30 years later, Go came out, right? To the month almost. That was what it was designed to do. But this book was due. That came out for the 30th anniversary of the siege. Subsequently turned into a film called 6 Days on Netflix. Jamie Bell plays me, Rusty Firmin, as a team leader on the assault that day. So I thought, great. Never thought much more about it afterwards. Didn't know it was ever going to be turned into a film. I had no idea. So then waited a few more years, traveling all over the world, working with all sorts of different people, indigenous, training people, operations and stuff. And then I wrote this one, The Regiment, 15 Years in the SAS. That, both of them are audible, by the way, if you need audible. So that was actually my life story up until I left the SAS in 1992. Of course, my third book, which I want to do, is from 1992 as a direct follow-on from that, what I did in Civvy Street, as they call it.
Yeah.
That you're going to have some laughs at. And you're going to go, wow, even I did that. And I haven't even written it yet, but I've got it ready. So I'd like to do that. And again, people can see that there is no stop in life. You stop when you die, or you stop when you decide to stop. At the moment, I don't see the word stop. What I do see is always a little further, which is a mantra. Okay, there's always something else to do. It just depends what you want to do. You know, I can mix and match. I'm a lifelong Liverpool supporter, football club, you know. So you can watch your football, you can do your work. I've got a couple of projects going on right now, which are totally different, diverse. And people say, well, why don't you stop? I say, well, I don't want to stop. I don't really want to die. I want to keep going. And it doesn't matter. As long as my legs will carry me, I'm off. When they can't, time to hang your boots up, mate. And that's a fact. And a lot of the guys I know, serving, you know, guys I've served with, a lot of them are no longer with me. You know, they're not there anymore. They're good friends of mine. So whatever I can leave as a legacy anywhere, I'm quite happy to do that. And I don't want to change it. So really, the books are one. One was turned into a film. If I could do a third book, great. And it's all about life experiences. People want to know about it, you know, and they can learn. They can learn from a book. I've had lots and lots of comments on them, really nice comments about how did you do this? How did you find that? I try where I can to answer them all. And really, to me, it's a bit, wow, I never thought people would look at it that way. To me, it's a book. I mean, that's what I've done. People are interested because the way the world is at the moment, the way the country is at the moment, you know, a lot of people look for a bit of leadership, motivation, inspiration. You know, if I can help, that's what I do. And I don't see myself changing that because it's in my blood. You know, Firmin, my surname, comes from feminists, part French. You know, shame on that side of it, but you know, it means steadfast and resolute. I think I fit that without being big-headed. I think I fit in that bill because I'm really hard to shut up. If I've got a point of view to put across, I still look at this country as mine. I fought for it. And I'll still lay down, even as of last week. I stood up and I will keep fighting. even though a lot of it appears to be a losing fight because of our weak leadership in this country. The fact is, when people say something to me, I just say, you know what? At the moment, it's still my country. Take it or leave it. Sometimes it's a bit stronger than that, by the way. But I've fought for my country.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
How do you find that, like, with the being, because you show people what it's possible. Like you've said, you're a small kid, you've gone from being bullied to leading an SAS team. You've got a film made about your exploits. You've done all these amazing things. How do you find that when you look at it? Is the film realistic to what you endured, what you have to put up with, with the government saying we're going to do this and the weak leadership and things like that? How realistic is the films to what you guys had to put up with? Because you've done amazing things, you've sacrificed so much for the country. But how realistic is the portrayal, like 6 days, to what you actually endured?
Yeah. Well, 6 days isn't just for me, by the way. I've got a few of the guys that served with me at the time. They all spoke to the scriptwriter, Glenn Standrin, New Zealand Film Corporation. Everybody in their own words sat down and, over a period of a few days in Hereford, actually, they all give their story. But because of who I was and the man with no gloves, I was a standout. You probably, have you heard of the man with no gloves?
Yeah. Did you really leave them because you were watching the snooker and forgot them?
Yeah. No, I didn't forget them. I sat down to watch the snooker with John McAleese, my mate. Mm-hmm. A lot of people know John with the moustache. And when we came in from stand 2, which means there was an incident, but it didn't go in, so we came back in. The snooker was on. The Embassy World Championship was on. Alex Higgins was playing Cliff Thorburn at that particular time. So we came back in on the day of May the 5th, 1980. We came back in. Then we went out for the very last time. Unbeknown, they'd killed a hostage, the terrorists. So my gloves, when I came in, normally went down my body armor. Take them off. Sit there with all your kit. I'd put them on the table, watching the snooker. And then we got a quick call out because they killed a hostage, a guy called Lavasani, the press attaché. That is a proper picture that was taken by police snipers of the day. It's called The Resolution. It's now my print, which I had a painting done. It's on my website, www.rusty-firmin.com. And that there, you can see that I've got no gloves on, and I'm the team leader. I'd left them by the television. So we went through the assault, rescued the 19 hostages, disposed of 5 terrorists. 1 terrorist got out, captured. I went back and picked my gloves up after that. But really, it was just I'd left them by the TV when we got called out for the last time. But I didn't realize until we got outside the building, but I wasn't going back for my gloves.
Yeah.
They stayed there. To the very end. So that's a print I had done of it. It's called the Resolution there, and that's the guys that went in the back door on the 5th of May 1980 to rescue the hostages, and I was a team leader of that lot.
So how much planning are you involved in? Because in the film, you're portrayed as the guy that plans it, that works it out. You seem to have this great mind for these things. Do you how much
Now,
involvement are you in training and planning and stuff like that? Because you seem amazing at these sorts of things.
now, I mean, the film is a film, and I'll be totally honest with you. As much as we were involved in some of the planning changes towards the end. You may or may not know that, but the plan is a plan, and we call it a skeleton. And as days go on, you put meat on it. But it wasn't just me. Everybody has an input, but somebody finally has to say, right, this is the plan, right? And then that plan is the final assault plan, which we used. In the film, it looks like I've done a lot of the planning, but actually, it's pretty much other guys are doing the same, but it's a film. So the film has to be portrayed over a certain period of time. Can you imagine? It's like Zulu, the film.
Yes.
How many Zulus were there? The fact is that they were trying to show a camaraderie between the guys that were on there. They're not saying they're the only ones who are on there, but it's a film they had to get inside 90 minutes and make it the best way they could. So they took my input, as I say. They've taken the guys, the other guys that get mentioned in the credits, they put an input in. They've read through the book, this book here, again, Go, one of my books. And they've decided on what they want as a film. And that's what they produced. So I never went to them. They came to me, having read that book. And they decided that was a film they wanted. Did I have an interest? And I said, yeah, because I thought after 30 years, I thought maybe it might have been covered elsewhere. But actually, if you think about it, it wasn't. So I had a chance to put my input into it. And people often say, I tell them the same story. The fact is that it's a book that they've read, and then the film has to be put into a script because it's a film script. So that's how it works. It's not the first film or documentary I've been involved in, but they're all the same. You can't make it word for word because it's a shame that some of the guys that would have been in that film are dead. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And they never had a chance to put an input into it. So it's one way of telling it, but they may want to tell it a different way in another book. But if you notice, nobody's done that. I was lucky that I had all the pictures. I had, a lot of knowledge because of what I did. But also, other people were quite happy to put an input into the film. So, on that side of it, Ian, it's a film, and it is quite accurate. But they have to give it a film license as well, don't they? You know that.
Yeah.
Because not enough people, unfortunately, are around to dot every, cross the T's and stuff. But the film is, it's, I was an advisor on it. I went to New Zealand to advise on it. Trained Jamie Bell to become me, Jamie, the British-born actor. He played me in the film. So they said, go out to New Zealand, which I did, and helped out there with some of the. But then when I came back, Matthew, the producer and stuff, they got together and did what they wanted to show. And it wasn't a Bravo thing. What it was a part which was there for them to make a film about. And I wouldn't see that till it was finally finished. Because, producers and directors get on with that stuff. I did my part. I taught some the room clearance drills, as we did with the weapons we had in those days, to make the film as best you can with the memory of all those years ago. And when it came out, it's had good reviews. Simple as that, really.
I think it's wonderful that you're getting the opportunity to show people and keep that legacy alive, to give the guys the honor, the respect that they deserve for doing such an incredible thing, saving so many people, ridding the world of terrorists, and for demonstrating what we will accept and what we wouldn't accept on British soil. How are you trained during that? Do you think the soldiers are born that way? Or are you trained so much that when the shit hits the fan, everybody else is running away, you go in because you're so highly trained? Is it a mix of nature versus nurture, do you think?
Well, as I say, I did my selection in 77. And I remember the instructors in the SAS in particular. I always remember that they were down-to-earth guys, knowledgeable beyond belief. And I thought, I've never met this before. So first of all, I wanted to pass the course, so I couldn't upset anybody. But I thought, after the 6-month training there to get in to start with, that the level of person or guys you're working with, they come from a variety of backgrounds. Could be artillery engineers, could be the old slop jockeys, it could be all sorts of people. Intelligence Corps, all these different characters come together to do a course to try and get in the SAS. And the one thing about that is this: when you come to do a plan for a mission, for an operation, for training, when you sat there with all these guys, this is what we've got to do. You have an enormous wealth of knowledge because of their units and what they do in their units. You make a plan, and sat there somebody would say, well, Rusty, or whoever, what about this? Because I'm from that unit. So what you're thinking, you go, fucking hell, yeah, he's been there. So you can change and manipulate, and these are a different level because they're the ones year after year that have actually passed. And I don't class myself as an SAS soldier, having passed the course, never did. I knew that I'd give myself at least 2 years to find out how it all worked. So all these different characters and backgrounds are on your side, they're your team. You're working with them together. And that means an awful lot because if you make a mistake, you've got somebody there will stand up. What about this? You don't discard that and say, sit down. You take that on board and think, is that a valid point? Then you talk through it. Excuse me, but I'm going to call it a Chinese parliament. I don't care who's upset. That's what we did. Chinese parliament. Everybody sits down and throws their bits in.
Yeah.
One guy has to make the plan. Right? And you've got all these faces there. They're not young kids. These are predominantly 20-odds upwards. So they've all seen service. They've all come from different backgrounds. There's an awful lot of knowledge there. You discard that knowledge at your peril. Because those guys, okay, they've all passed the SAS selection. They've all got something to say. 99% of it is 100%, but then all that information you have to disseminate and then put it together. Right, this is the plan. Okay? So it's not like a shop floor maybe in one of the workers or maybe one of the units I was in before, where the boss goes, right, this is it, and does it all on his own. Everybody goes behind his back, toss their ears. It's not like that. It was put into the Chinese parliament, have a talk, come out, make the plan. That's why the SAS, in my opinion, is so successful, because they take on board everything, not discard it. Rubbish. That's why they're successful. Fitness and everything else, yep. I still think it's the hardest one of all of them to get into. But actually, when you're making the plans and success of the operations that are being done, that is one of the main reasons, and people don't know that.
That's a really great insight, because you
True.
don't see that anywhere
true.
else, do you?
No.
People don't listen to other people, and I love that you guys bounced off each other, got feedback, planned, but how do you feel then about how, the rules of engagement then, how we dealt with terrorism and things like that? How has that changed over the last 20, 30 years since you were in the army and leaving it?
I'm not quite sure about that, because when I left the SAS, I don't follow them. I've got some good friends, by the way, but I don't follow what the SAS do, what anybody does. Rules of engagement to me are, first of all, rules of engagement. Great. There they are, written down. There you go. You go, yeah, okay. You know what? No, seriously. My rules of engagement were always, whatever happens on the ground, I'll make that decision. And I ain't going to look at a bit of paper. Not for anybody. Not for one person. I will do what I have to do and stand up later and say, that's what I did. Because it's unfair. The terrorists don't have rules of engagement. What they do is they're whinging and whining afterwards. Okay? They want to fight? Pick a fight. Okay? Rules of engagement are one-sided. Okay? So why bother yourself with them? You haven't got time. Most of it, split-second stuff. What you need to do, my rules of engagement in here, okay, I've read that, gone. I will make my decision when I have to. As long as I'm alive at the end of it, I don't give a monkeys. And that's not being funny or nasty or anything disrespectful. But if you're going to have rules of engagement, let's have them on both sides, shall we? How about that?
Yeah.
That might take some people back. They ain't going to like that. But that's what it is.
So how do you find then the transition to civilian life? How do you find leaving the army? Because I've interviewed people. I work in a university where one of my colleagues he's the British military champion with the university, and they're looking at transitioning soldiers to civilian life, and that there wasn't like a good way of doing it. They were kind of just, there's your sign out papers, off you go. And some of them didn't know how to do bank accounts and things like that. How did you find your transition, and what changes would you like to see for heroes that are coming out of the service that are going into normal life?
Well, I did touch on this earlier, if you remember, in this interview. When I was going out of the army, I'd been in 27 years.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get out, because military really is for, once you hit 42, which I was when I came out, pretty much I was ready to go. No question. It says that in my book. All I did is I thought, right, what am I going to do? Security, I've got that sewn up. I've done this, I've done that. And I went to security quite quickly. They call it the circuit. Got good jobs. But before I went out, I did things like, as I said earlier, NEBOSH certificate, security management, all that type of stuff. Plymouth College of Further Education, bored the backside off me. But I did it, and I got my qualifications. Right. So anybody wants to see, Rusty, what did you do? They are a shed full of security. There's my little diploma. There. Oh, I love your diploma. Load of bollocks. You know what? When I went out the army, I had to do it. I did it for another reason as well, because I knew that I could pass it. It's nothing. And I did. But to an employer, there's your little bit of paper. You know, where's this bit gone? But I did it. That's me. People coming out the army should always prepare to come out 7 Ps. Prior planning and preparation prevents piss poor performance, right? 7 Ps. Plan what you're going to do. Then try to execute your plan, because that's going to suit you. Don't expect anything, nothing, to be given to you on a plate. I'm telling you that now, because if you think back to my life, what was given to me? The answer is nothing. So, you know what? That's only me. But I think I've had, and I've inspired people. I've spoken to them. I've helped them. If you don't help yourself, you know what? Get on that scrap heap over there with the rest of them. Because it starts with you. You help yourself first, Ian. Anybody else, quite happy to help. But you have to help yourself. Oh, I've been in the army 20 years, 30 years. I can't go into civilian street. Yes, you can. First of all, put it there. Get yourself a little path where you might want to go, because trust me, wherever I've gone, it's never gone to plan. I've had the plan, but if you go down that line and can't change, forget it. You might have to change and go right. You might have to go left instead of down that line. But have something, because nobody can stay in the army forever, or the military. You know, I've done talks for cadets. I've done, well, everybody, and charities. Yeah, and working with the amputees and stuff in the charities. The fact is, you have to actually get out there and just say, right, I've got to go out there. You see, you've got that there, and you've got your pension there, and you've been paid all your life in the army. That's where, I can't do that. Well, you can do it. What you have to do is prepare yourself to do it. Look back if you want. Forget it. You know you're going out of the army, and I've helped them. But the biggest failure is people, you know, is people, especially the guys on the streets and stuff. Some of them could be helped, but in my day when I came out, there was nothing. You know, all this PTSD and stuff, which eventually you can get diagnosed with, yes. But the fact is, Ian, that there is help, but it's very hard to help somebody who's lost it a bit here. You know, it'd be nice to say we've got the government. The immigrants get treated better than our ex-forces, no question. They come over here, nobody even knows who they are. They give them money. They give them somewhere to live. They give them these warrants to go, it really grips me. But the fact is, they don't do that with the veterans. The guys who fought for the country and died for the country. That is something that's inexcusable. And I've made that point 100 times. Never ever going to change that. Our veterans are treated crap by this establishment. And always have been. There's no question. And it's just absolutely awful the way they're treated. They've been through a lot. And the day it stops, maybe their mind stops. Well, but that's not the case. If we've got houses available, and put the veterans in there.
So do you think there's things in the army that would be good for all men to do? Are there things that they teach you that would help today's society? The way that men are treating veterans, are treating just the world? Would that, would the army kind of mentality give them a kick up the arse that's needed, do you think?
I don't think so. I think that the whole thing is corrupt, the system, and it's got more corrupt. And I really absolutely believe that nobody's bothered. When you join the army, you get given a number, right? When you leave the army, you leave with that number. And to most, I'm talking about when I left, I don't know too much about nowadays, but when you leave, they don't actually give a shit. You're another number. That's all you are.
Yeah.
You're there, 27 years, next, and it goes on. So why should you be out the army for 20, 30, 40 years and they get called back for an incident that happened all this time, all this years ago? You're nothing more than a pawn. People move you around, and that shouldn't be right. A guy that's done his service, maybe been in an incident or two, that happens when you're told what to do by your seniors, because if you don't do it, you get court-martialed. It's an order. Disobey an order. And then 20, 30 years, my good friend Dennis, how many times was he taken back to Northern Ireland? Eventually he died on his last trip there. It really is beyond, and if you haven't been in that, it's hard to explain. But you aren't anybody. You're nobody. You're a pawn for the ones that are left there above you to play with. That's the way it is. And I don't see any changes to that because, I'll be honest with you, just have a look at the governments we've had. They're not bothered. They go home at night. You don't see their kids getting, shot because they're never in the forces. Have a look at it that way.
So what advice would you give to anybody like in the army, joining the army, in the SAS, what would you give them, like maybe to inspire them or to kind of rein them in, to kind of have them focused on a particular way to be the best they can be, their best self in the role?
Well, I've said this before, and the fact is that maybe myself now, if I was going to join the army now, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have joined the army. But the fact is, I'm not telling people not to join the army. But what I am saying is, before you do that, you need to have a good look at what's actually going on, what you could be involved in. Do you want to be 20 years, 30 years after maybe you're married and got 3 or 4 kids, or whatever, being dragged in before a court for something that happened 30 years ago? It needs a lot of thought in. And I wouldn't say to anybody who wants to join the army, don't join, because of, because of what I did. I enjoyed it in the end. But what I would say is that they need to make themselves 100% certain that they're ready to face those consequences. Because I've been through it, and I know a lot of friends of mine who've been through it. And that's when you think, I've served my country. Now, all of a sudden, you drag back for this, drag back for that. They've got a family as well. Nobody cares about them.
Yeah.
All they care about is appeasing the establishment every time. So I would say, give it some thought. Because I've had some good times. And I've enjoyed a lot of the stuff I've done. But I am watching, and I do work with veterans, and I can see how it affects them at times. It's not good. But everybody else, they're not in that sort of setup. They don't get a chance, mate. They have to do what they're told. I don't like that.
I mean, the thing is, you've given other people a chance at life by saving people, by rescuing people. You've done these amazing things and you've changed society for the better. So you should be phenomenally proud of what you've done. I mean, there's a lot of things I could say about the sacrifices you have to make, which are unfair on what they give you in support afterwards. But when you look back now, what do you think about, like if you could remember that day that you started to the day you left, what do you think of that time now? Is it something that you look at with pride? Do you ever long for playing football, just enjoying yourself? What do you think of when you look back? I mean, do you have any regrets, or because you've saved so many people, but what would you write in your book now if you had to sum up your life? What would you say?
There's an awful lot, because I'm going beyond where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've already spoke about recently about what's happening worldwide. My time in the army was different than the time in the army now, right? Because certainly different prime ministers who actually support or stab you in the back. I was lucky that we had Maggie Thatcher. I know not everybody likes her. It's a fair point. But we don't have those type of people anymore. I can only talk about what I did when I did it. I can watch what goes on now, and it's beyond. You just don't know what they're doing. But me, I was lucky in some respects. Did my time, got out of it in reasonable condition, look back, and then see, certain things that happened. 90% of it's political, obviously, but the soldiers are the ones who have to take the brunt of it. But I really would like to see them supported better, looked after better when they come out as a veteran, helped if required, and they shouldn't ever have to be on the streets. Now, I can write about that because of what I've done since I've been out. And I want to get my third book out because I've never been about myself. And I do voluntary stuff, which I get my kick out of that, helping. But I do think that the country is more orientated towards immigration than it ever is towards soldiers on the street, shall we say. And they're not bothered. They've done their bit. Their number is passed. And that's it.
I mean, you've mentioned about, a lot of great friends. You're helping a lot of people just now. What did the service teach you about, like building friendships, building, that kind of lifelong friends, teamwork? Because you make a brotherhood in the service, and you help the people now. You're helping veterans now. What have you learned about friendships from that? That, and almost that sense of being wanted, the sense of being part of something by being in the service.
As I say, when I joined and when I moved on through the army, a lot of the people I met were people from similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
Okay, remember Dr. Bananas and stuff like that. And you seem to get this like nucleus that come together, like magnets attracting each other. And you find that for every story you've got, your mate's got a story. And you talk about them. You can relate. You bond a friendship. Somebody, you have to be able to rely on people. When you work in the sort of stuff I've done in the SAS in particular, if you've got a weak link, it's going to be exposed very, very quickly.
Definitely.
So I mean that. And the fact is, you have to rely on what you've got. You're close, and you're in small numbers, really. You've got to realize that it's probably at some stages do or die. But the fact that comes and goes, they're your top friends. Then you get the next level. The next level of people, acquaintances, let's say. People you play football with in the regiment or whatever. You see them, especially in SAS, because 4 squadrons, one might be somewhere, one might be at home in the UK, one might be somewhere else, and so on. So you've got acquaintances you meet all the time over your period of years. They're friends, but the ones you're working with day in and day out, you've got to rely on them. And if you can't, the days are numbered. And really, and that's the way it was. You've got to make your mind up with what you've seen in life, what you've done, how you've been let down, how you've got people who go ahead and force it. So you make that type of friendship, and then maybe one of them die. So you've lost your best friend, but life goes on. So you have to, I've done a couple of eulogies for some good friends of mine who were good friends, but they're no longer with us, but I am. And so if you look at it that way, I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Is it's continuously learning. And don't forget, with every friend, there's likely to be a backstabber somewhere. Right? And it happens. I've had it happen to me. But the fact is, you find out, don't you? And then it's a different kettle of fish. But that's what I would say. It really is. Friendship is one thing, but when you say friendship, it means looking after each other. Not just go that way. Now, you're there in the thick and the thin, mate. Could be a punch up in the street. Could be somewhere abroad. It really is that way. And to a lot of people, they can say the same in different circumstances. But the camaraderie is what they wanted to show in 6 Days film. John Mack, myself, They picked the scenario for the film. I just happened to be one of the guys in there. It could have been anywhere else in the film. I didn't pick it. They picked it, but they wanted to show the camaraderie. And I think it shows you quite well in there. You know, but it's a film.
So what would you want people going forward to do for like veterans? You know, what would you want people to help with charities and things like that? You know, like, because you work with some charities now. How can people, not just the poppy appeal and things like that, how can we actually help veterans? How can we donate to the right charities, help people who are coming out of the service? You know, not even just at government level, but like the people on the street, that sort of
thing. Some of the bigger charities I wouldn't touch because I know what's happening in them. Unfortunately, I can't say what it is on here, but they really are piss takers. It's a shame to say that. But there are one or two charities, they're real hard-working charities, which I do it for nothing. I don't get paid. I'm a patron because I believe in it. But the charity system seems like it's open-ended for one, where they put the money in, they take it out. You know, how much do they do with the money they get? Nobody actually finds out. But we've all got our spies in the woodwork. So the charity, setting up of a charity and stuff, I've thought of doing one myself. But actually there's, I don't know how many, there's a couple of thousand charities. Every one of them is supposed to be doing wonders, but actually they don't. But I had one for veterans in mind. Might still do it. You know, speaking to James the other day, and up in Scotland in particular, there's a lot of soldiers in the streets. And I was thinking of, because my best mates, John and I, died in siege, I was thinking of maybe doing something with them or for them. It's just time consuming at the moment to just get around this corner I'm at. And I might still do that. Because there's so many of them. And there's always the stories, you know, I know some of them are true, because I've seen some of the stuff that's gone on. And I didn't particularly want to get involved in that and be part of it. But there are some good points to do if you can do it. Some shit as well, by the way. But and I think everybody, if it's needed, because there's a lot of the veterans are amputees, as you well know. And all they try to do with them is give them a life back. Give them something to aim at. Give them a task. Not let them think, you know, they lost a limb too. Some of the guys have lost 3 limbs. You know, and some of them still climbing Everest. You know. So they've got, not everybody needs to think. It's hard to say, you know, I've lost a leg. So they're still alive. And they're still alive. And they can be helped. But the mantra that we use for that is, I said it earlier, always a little further. Now think about that one, Ian. Always a little further. And, you know, wherever you can, there is help outside of people who know what's going on. It's pretty much, you know, it's easy to look over the top of it and go into the middle of it. That's what I don't like.
I think that's maybe what we need, is a charity run by veterans, for veterans, people who actually understand and actually will deal with the problems, not just take a salary because they want to talk the PR stuff will actually help the veterans, and I think that would be an amazing idea. I know we're way over our time limit, but such an honor to have you on. But what would you want people to take from this interview? What would you want them to remember about you, about the army, the movie, about life in general? How do you, what would you want people to take from this?
Well, for anybody who watches it, is that I'm not about myself. What I've done is I've done. Mine's documented. So wouldn't it be nice to have some of these guys coming through and take the bull by the horns and get themselves documented for taking a lead, throwing everything aside, sod you, and go on and push and push and push. And then let them be talked about. Oh, well, he was injured, and it doesn't matter. You've still got a life. And the fact is, they're not well looked after. Nobody's ever going to change my mind on that. Nobody. But for me personally, I've done my bit. I'm not finished. I'm there to help. These guys, as long as they don't feel sorry for themselves, I know it's horrible to say, I don't mean it nastily, some do, cast that aside. Look up there and say, always a little further. Make that move. See if it changes your life. Because life changing, it can come from other people. But actually, I always remember a guy called Jim Rohn I worked security for. He said, in winter, the birds have to fly south. That's what they do.
Yeah.
A human being can turn and do whatever he wants to do. A bird has to fly south. That means it's got no choice. That's what they do.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time on ornithology. Birds, study of birds, yeah? They fly south. So a veteran doesn't have to fly south. A veteran and a group of veterans can do what they want, Ian. They make their mind up. They're the ones who can change their course. Yes, they can have help, but only only a veteran can change his own course if he wants to. You're not going to round them all up and go, right, you're all going over there tonight. I wouldn't go. I'd say, no, I want to go over that side. Bird can't do that.
Yeah.
Has to fly south. So, from what you've just asked me, there is mileage in it. There is some help. And the fact is, as I said earlier, you have to help yourself. It sounds horrible at times, but stand up and be counted. You're in the military. Don't even be worried about upsetting anybody. Just do it, as the advert says. And that's what I would say. And I know, because I've been around enough of them. And I hope that even if only 20 people take heed of what I've said tonight, it's 20 people that might understand and maybe be able to pass that on to other people. If another 20, from them 20 understand it, well, there you go. There's your pyramid. You're going to start somewhere. That's my belief.
And I think you've done this amazing job of showing people, that you can start from anywhere, that your starting point doesn't matter. It's where you finish. No. It's always just a little bit more, just keep going, keep pushing, and you can keep achieving things. And I think you're going to inspire so many people. So how can we keep in touch with you? How can we, find your website, buy the books, see the new books and listen to your talks? How can we follow this journey you're on?
Normally, anybody wants to come to me, just go to my website, www.rusty-firmin.com. There's an awful lot in there. It's just been updated. There's more to come. If you go there, first of all, it's got email address on there. It's got what you need. And I don't normally put the talks on there, but people who get me to go and do the talks, it's what I do for a living, basically. That's how I'm back out to the States again. And they look after you really well out there. They look after their veterans far better in the States than they'll ever do in this country. Absolutely, I don't know how they do it. They are veterans mad out there. So they are well looked after. Here, you forget it, But if you go there to the website, first of all, you'll see what's going on. There's contact forms on there. And I've been contacted by quite a few. And if you can get that going, I can let them know once I get it's a relatively new site up. The other one I've taken down. I've got a new one. It needs just tweaking up a bit in certain areas. But the fact is, it's on there. And then just type my name into Google. It's all over the place. But yeah, that's it, Ian, really. The books are on there. It's not an awful lot of merchandise. I didn't believe in that. I'll put some other stuff on there when I get back. But in the main, there's enough stuff on there for people who really want to have a look and then see what happens, mate.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.